I'm doing another mix breakdown. Today, I'm going to show how I mixed the song for Vory. Vory's been really taking off. He's worked a lot with Meek Mills. He wrote Mob Ties for Drake, which is a bit controversial because people thought Drake wrote it himself. But let's get into the song and let me show you what I did. Start off by checking out his verse. This is also a song where I wrote the hook too. So Vory is singing the hook that I wrote, and he wrote his own verse. So let's get into it.
I had to show I was a winner. They can't see from the beginning. I've been standing on my business, and the Lord is my witness. Had to show I was a winner. Had to show I was a winner. Had to show I was a winner. I was a winner. Hey. And not to mention, made a couple mil last year, oh baby, not to mention. Caught a vibe off them shrooms, we caught a new dimension. Tell me when you stay down if the time came to stay down. Tell me when you lay down if the time came to lay down. You tryna vent about your ex, but I can't stay around. I don't got the time to play around. No.
Now, this was a very interesting session because when they sent me over the vocals were already full of compression, full of EQ, full of high end, full of enhancer. There was pretty much nothing that I could do. I spent the whole session in restoration work rather than trying to mix the song. So they ended up putting out like the second mix that I did, but I ended up doing a cleaner mix that we ended up releasing. So I'll just play that one here. So first thing first, I'm going to take off all the effects of the verse and then let you guys hear it. Of the hook and the verse, and then let y'all hear how the vocals came in.
I had to show I was a winner. From the beginning, I've been standing on my business.
So that's how Destroyed the vocals came in. Look.
I've been standing on my business.
They had every effect on there already there. Even with the verse. So when the verse came in, it came in like this.
Mention, made a couple mil last year, oh baby, not to mention. Caught a vibe off them shrooms, we caught a new dimension.
In hip hop, this is kind of common. When an artist, he or she likes his or her sound, they will usually print everything that's already in the session and send it over for mixing sometimes, because they just don't want anybody to touch their method or their way of doing stuff. But when I got the vocals back, I was just like, man, who tracked this? And so I was trying to get them to send me the dry vocals, but they just didn't have time. He went on tour. And so a lot of things happened in between me trying to clean up the vocals. So basically the artist who he featured on there with, it was like, just do the best that you can. And so that's what we did. So we'll get into what we did. This song was an interesting case because they did the hook separately from the verse. He did the hook one day and then he did the verse the next day. But my guess is that on the verse and probably on the hook, he recorded himself. Because a lot of times artists who are like just coming up, they don't want to spend the money to book the time. So how they'll do features is they'll get paid off the features, but they'll also get, the artist to pay for the time and they'll just record themselves. Most of the time I've seen it a whole lot. Not saying that there was this case, but it sounds like it. So on that verse, what we did to clean it up was I didn't start an auxiliary bus for it. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to start off this session
Show I was a winner.
Just by cleaning up a lot of those frequencies, because everything was this enhanced. Everything.
Show I was a winner from the beginning.
And this is the clean version, so I'm just trying not to, just trying to keep it PG. But I had cleaned up a lot of the frequencies that was in there.
Show I was a winner.
Turn it off.
From the beginning, I've been standing on my business.
Just to try to tame all of the EQs, I just wanted to bring the song back to reality. Next thing that I did was I de-essed. And there was a lot of action going on in about that 7,000 kilohertz range.
Show I was a winner.
And then so when I clean stuff up, I'm looking for the parts that annoy my ears the most, and then I'll just try to reduce those frequencies. So the mixing approach is very subtractive. Whenever you get damaged vocals, it's very subtractive. It's just like I'm trying to just get to even ground. I'm just trying to get to even ground, and then I'm trying to understand that where the artist is coming from and what they were trying to achieve. So I'm just trying to get to even ground at this point. Then the next thing that I did with the vocals was I just try to establish a little bit more EQ, but a little bit more subtractive. So I used the Pultec EQP 1A, which has a bit of saturation in it. Like, on it has this tone thing that sounds beautiful. And I just reduced that 60. I broadened the bandwidth, and I just took out a lot more of those lows. You know what I mean? Because even though you might take out lows, I just wanted to just take out more lows, but add a bit of saturation that comes with the plugin. So I did that. I didn't add anything. I was trying to do anything. So the next thing that I did after that was I took out more lows. But on this time, I just wanted to make sure that the CLA vocal, that it does this thing on the EQ that I really haven't, I just don't understand. When you take out the bass with the sub, it just sweeps probably up to 200 hertz. But then at the same time, I added a little bit of reverb and a little bit of that quarter delay and it's stereo widener. So if you can hear it.
Sure, I was a winner from the beginning. I've been standing on my business.
And so this is the plugin that really made the vocals pop out a little bit more, that I loved.
Sure, I was a winner, standing on my business, and the Lord is my witness. Had to show I was a winner. Had to show I was a winner. Had to show I was a winner.
So I just made sure that I could get it to the best place possible, that I could get it without throwing too many effects at it. I got it to a place that I loved it because I understood that if I messed any more with the effects and I sent it back that maybe the artist could complain, because at the end of the day, they sent it over with the effects because they liked their sound. So I was just like, all right, cool. Let me just try to enhance and just make your sound better without disturbing what you did too much. But on the verse, I had a huge problem. So when I did the verse, I was just like, I can tell that they rushed this. And that's what made me assume that this artist, that Vory, probably just recorded it himself, because I was just like, man, any experienced tracking engineer wouldn't have made these mistakes, because one, it was clipping, you know what I mean? So on here,
oh baby, not to mention.
So this was a piece of work. This verse was a piece of work. Because again, if we can go back and I could just play it for y'all.
And not to mention, made a couple mil last year, oh baby, not to mention. Caught a vibe off them shrooms, we got a new.
And even if I could play the whole verse without me cutting some of the stuff out, look.
And not to mention, made a couple mil last year, oh baby, not to mention. Caught a vibe off them shrooms, we got a new dimension.
So you can tell it's in very, and even if you're in an untreated room, there's a way to be able to approach vocals where you could still get a very, very clean sound, because you can see I'm in an apartment, I'm getting a clean sound. A lot of people are like, bro, how do you get that studio sound? One, it's my Federo template. Y'all go check that out. Sponsor of this video, the Federo template, my custom template. I love it. Drag and drop solution to recording. But back to the video. But it's like sometimes when you're just recording, you have to understand, you have to make sure that you're a proper mic distance. You have to make sure that you have a proper windscreen. You have to make sure that you're using even the mic that kind of complements your voice. And if you do use a mic that doesn't complement your voice, you have to understand the frequency response of that microphone to be able to make changes. So the first thing that I did is I try to cut out all of the effects that were on it, so that I manually went and just clipped out all of the delays and the reverbs that was on the back end, the tail end of the vocal. So when I did that, I added a Pultec EQ, and I don't know why I used the Waves version. I could have used the UAD version, but I was going for the same thing, except this time I wanted to make the bandwidth a little bit wider, and then I wanted to attenuate at 20 at the top end, right? And even though I didn't use that much, I was going back and forth, but 100 hertz, 4 dB of attenuation of the low end, right? So I started with that. Next, what I did was I had made sure to limit, because this was already clipping. So when it's already clipping, I was just like, all right, cool. Let me just try to make it sound as clean as I can. So I'm bringing down the ceiling. I want to bring down the vocal at a manageable pace where it just doesn't sound like it's clipping, right? So after I did that, I go and I use the F6 to clean up those ranges like I did in the hook.
Not to mention, made a couple mil last year, oh baby, not to mention. Caught a vibe off them shrooms, we caught a new dimension.
And I was trying to mess with the low end a little bit more, but I was just like, let me just wait to put this on the bus, because I knew that I needed more room to work, right? So I eventually sent it to a bus, 5 and 6.
Not to mention, made a couple mil last year, oh baby, not to mention.
And I got it to a good medium, I feel. So what I did was, first thing first, I made sure that I used the EQP1A on the actual bus. 60 hertz, used about 3.2 dB, and I didn't do the bandwidth as wide, but I made sure that I did a little bit attenuated, just a tad bit on the top end, right? And then also I know that I would get a pinch of that saturation from that plugin. The next thing that I did was I used the Sheps, and I like this plugin. This plugin is super, super dope because it has 2 de-essers on it, right? So I was just like, let me clean up the gate on here. One of the best things about this channel strip is like the noise gate is phenomenal on this plugin. I don't really like the compressor on it, but the saturator, the gate, the de-esser, and the EQ are all phenomenal. And maybe I don't mess with the compressor enough to really appreciate it, but these first 4 are phenomenal. So what I did was, I started off with the gate. I knew that it had all of that processing already on it, primarily the reverb and the delays, and I needed to cut them back. So I made sure to dial those back with the gate. After that, there was a lot of energy at like 3,800 kilohertz range. And so I dialed that, and then I dialed it back, and I punched it hard. I punched it super, super hard, because I wanted to basically make this thing flat. You feel me? Because like when you get a mix that's like distorted, you have to get it back to a medium to then go back, and then like you have to subtract so much to a point where you know that you can mix it at, because I still had to inject my style and my flavor into what they were trying to do, because the artist that it was featured on was like, yo, I still want your flavor. You know what I'm saying?
And not to mention, made a couple mil last year, oh baby, not to mention. Caught a vibe off them shrooms, we caught a new dimension.
And so that's how I put the gate back on.
And not to mention, made a couple mil last year, oh baby, not to mention. Caught a vibe off them shrooms, we caught a new dimension.
So once we tame all of those things, we put them back on. We almost got it flat, right? So now that we got it to a comfortable medium, I could just activate things, and like I go back with one of the best plugins that I love, the CLA Vocal. So then I address the subs, because once you DS, you add some of those low mid frequencies back in. It kind of boosts those things. So we need to cut them out again, right? So we go to the CLA Vocal.
Not to mention, made a couple mil last year, oh baby, not to mention. Caught a vibe off them shrooms, we caught a new dimension.
And then I took off all them subs to get it to a clean place, because that CLA does such a great job on those low ends and low mids. It just like, once you just bring it down, you really hear it.
Not to mention, made a couple mil last year, oh baby, not to mention.
Then I punched it with some compression a little bit, used the tight reverb, used the A delay, and used a stereo widener, but not as wide as the hook, because I didn't want the verse to explode wide like the hook did. So after I cleaned that up, I went with some F6. And here's the tricky part. Here's the thing. It's just like, the thing that I do uncommon to a lot of engineers is I like to put the reverbs and the delays in the middle of my sequence when I'm mixing, because I feel like it gives it an authentic sound, you know, instead of just using sends to put in reverb, delays, reverbs at the end, because at the end of the day, that's still at the end of the mix. So if I put reverbs and delays right in, intermingle in the middle of the mix, on the middle of my chain, it gives it like a unique sound. You know what I mean? So at that point in time, I'm cutting out more lows. I'm just checking. This was just me just cleaning up frequencies at this point.
And not to mention, made a couple mil last year, oh baby, not to mention. Caught a vibe off them shrooms, we caught a new dimension.
And at that point, I feel like I got it as clean as I can. Then I go back with another de-esser because, hey, who doesn't need more de-essing, right? We want to check frequencies. And at the end of the day, this was just my comfortable me trying to keep everything in the pocket. And this one I punched quite hard too. And a lot of people don't know is that a de-esser is basically a compressor for specific frequencies. So I like to use it at the end of my change just to keep the vocal in check. Because at the end of the day, certain mixes and certain vocals can trick you. So I like to put the de-esser at the end of the chain just to keep the whole vocal in check. Almost like a vocal rider or just, me riding the vocals. But I understand that certain frequencies on certain parts can get out of control because music frequencies of the beat is constantly changing. So I want to make sure that if I don't do anything else, I'm going to keep certain frequencies in check. And I could do it with that F6 RTA. But I was just like, at the end of the day, let me just use a de-esser because I just like that sound. Because if you use a de-esser at the end of the mix, end of your vocal chain, it just gives a little bit of that warmness back. You know what I mean? So that's why I like it. And then I finished off with another compressor with the arc compress just to make the vocals stand out a little bit more.
And not to mention, made a couple mil last year, oh baby, not to mention.
And then throw my bust that delay.
And not to mention, made a couple mil last year, oh baby, not to mention. Caught a vibe off them shrooms, we caught a new dimension. Tell me when you stay down if the time came to stay down. Tell me when you lay down if the time came to lay down. You tryna vent about your ex, but I can't stay around.
And if this artist would have just simply just tracked it the right way, I'd have made it sound 100 times better. But at the end of the day, that's what music is about. Sometimes music is about just people recording it uncommon places and trying to make whatever they can work. Music started like that. There were no rules. And at the end of the day, this is a song that, did rather well on streams. And, it just did what it needed to do. So you can't complain. As consumers, sometimes we don't know the difference. As musicians, we know the difference. But the consumers, sometimes, you put something out to the market and they feel like, okay, yeah, they're not as subjective on knowing what a good mix is. They just want to understand that, this song is crazy. You feel me? So as an engineer, my engineer part of me wants to be able to artistically understand what the artist is trying to do, even if they did the wrong way. So, but at the end of the day, we have to try things. So unfortunately on this mix, I didn't get a chance to build a vocal template on these vocals because the vocals were so damaged that I couldn't. But I did do another Vory song that I mixed, that I'm going to do a mix breakdown on, that I did create a template for. The template is not quite ready yet, but it's going to be ready soon. But all in all, I hope this inspires you all to keep creating and to understand that the conditions don't have to be perfect to be able to express yourself. You have to just keep making music, keep making music. And even if you're not an experienced recording artist, just keep recording and keep putting it out there. You never know where you can be. And lastly, if you guys want to learn how to record with ease, with any kind of microphone and get a great sound, check out the Federo template. It's in the link below. You're going to love it. It's your one drag and drop solution to perfect recording. Lastly, I just want to say thank you all for supporting me. Thank you all for being such a community. Thank you all for just giving me your time and your energy. I'm going to make sure that I create as much content as I can and help you all to be the best musicians that you can. It's your boy Federo. Bye.